Nel lontano 8 settembre del 1966, per la prima volta comparve sugli schermi televisivi statunitensi l'astronave Enterprise, con il suo inseparabile equipaggio, in una nuova serie televisiva di fantascienza, Star Trek. Nessuno avrebbe potuto prevederlo all'epoca, ma Star Trek era destinata a trasformarsi in una delle più longeve saghe di fantascienza mai realizzate, con milioni di fan in tutto il mondo.
It's the 40th anniversary of Star Trek, the original series, and when we were bringing the show back to syndication, we took a look at it and decided it was time for some refurbishments, if possible, and we decided to retransfer and clean up the prints that we were going to deliver to stations. Well, then looking at the show, we realized that some of the effects that were done in the late 60s really didn't stand up to contemporary eyes, and once we'd retransferred the show and it looked so fantastic in its new high-def transfer, we thought that it made sense to take a look at some of the visual effects and see if we could replace them with contemporary computer effects.
La versione rimasterizzata di Star Trek ha dato la possibilità di rimediare a qualche errore. Quando Scott cerca di entrare in sala macchine usando un phaser, originariamente non emetteva nessun raggio. Ora invece l'effetto è stato completato. Una volta recuperati i negativi originali e archiviati per decenni in appositi magazzini sotterranei, ha avuto inizio il lavoro di ripulitura per rimuovere tutte le impurità che si erano accumulate sulla pellicola. Le immagini, riversate su supporti digitali in alta definizione, sono state poi corrette eliminando i segni del tempo, i graffi e le distorsioni della pellicola. Infine, sono stati ritoccati il contrasto e i colori.
Sin dai tempi dei primi vascelli di legno, il capitano della nave ha sempre goduto di un privilegio. Quello di poter amministrare il sacro vincolo del matrimonio.
I mean, to look at what was put out in that standard, the original standard def, and to put an A/B right up next to it of the high definition, it speaks for itself.
Each episode is a composition of still images that make a motion image. And the idea of color correction is to get that all those still images to play together smoothly.
La cerimonia sarà trasmessa su tutti gli schermi, signore.
Bene.
La chiamano dal ponte, capitano.
La serie classica ha ripreso vita sotto gli occhi di coloro che volevano ripresentarla al pubblico televisivo del nuovo millennio.
Hanno un tale complesso di macchinari laggiù da non crederci.
In arena si notava uno strano oggetto di metallo nella parte superiore dell'inquadratura, che è stato rimosso. Per dare maggiore profondità alla scena sono state aggiunte delle costruzioni e un cratere. Il Gorn è stato reso più credibile aggiungendogli dei battiti di palpebra. La pulizia delle immagini è andata di pari passo con la rimasterizzazione delle tracce audio. Star Trek è infatti ricordato anche per la sua indimenticabile colonna sonora.
Horn 4, bar 22, drop out on the fourth beat.
Play the reference track and then we'll play this again. Okay. Wait till you hear this. Yeah.
Tenendo bene a mente l'idea di migliorare e non sostituire la musica composta all'epoca, è stata rinnovata anche l'indimenticabile sigla.
I think there's no question it's one of the most important music themes ever written for television because not only was it one of the classic science fiction series of the 60s, but the impact of Star Trek both on television and in our culture on a greater scale is really incalculable.
Ha in qualche modo cambiato la storia.
Star Trek is the most famous theme that Alexander Courage ever wrote, but he also worked quite a lot on MGM musicals of the 1950s. He wrote the score for The Left-Handed Gun, and also for a number of other television series, including Judd for the Defense. But Star Trek is and always will be his most famous piece of music. Gene Roddenberry brought Alexander Courage in during the shooting stage of the original Star Trek pilot. He actually brought him onto the sound stage. He visited the sets, saw the activity that was going on, and decided he wanted to write a theme that would suggest out there the far reaches of space. And he remembered hearing an arrangement of Beyond the Blue Horizon, the old song from many years ago, that had great leaps in terms of the intervals, the musical, stretching the musical grammar, if you will. And he sort of emulated that. And the idea that it was a sort of grand, moving out there kind of theme was always part of the musical concept of Star Trek.
We've assembled a band of about 28 players, 29 players to re-record the original Star Trek theme from the 60s. And we're doing this to update the audio. It's the 21st century, and recording techniques have changed massively since then. So we can make it sound a lot better. We're being very truthful and faithful to the original notes because it's sacred, hallowed ground, this theme.
Ora si comincia a sentire qualcosa.
A lot of these players I selected because they played on the Star Trek TV shows, the contemporary ones. And I worked on that a little bit too, and I thought, well, those are the people that probably could best serve the re-recording of this theme. And they have a vested interest in Star Trek.
I'm surprised at how incredibly authentic sounding it is. Greg Smith, who has reorchestrated this, worked from Alexander Courage's original orchestrations, his original sketches, and he's assembled the same size orchestra with the exact same makeup of woodwinds and brass and percussion, and the use of a soprano, which Gene Roddenberry insisted on in the original theme, and it is as close, I think, as can possibly be done to the original.
Questo confronto non lascia dubbi.
Paramount has a library, music library, that has a lot of old scores. And Bob Bornstein, who runs the library there, knew where the file was for all the Star Trek scores. So I called up Bob, and I went in and sat there, and he got out an unmarked folder because it's such a precious item. And out came the original scores in pencil format, the original notes. I think I was most curious to find out what had changed from the time it was scored to when it was recorded, because changes and alterations take place in sessions. So I had the scores, I listened to the track, and very little had been altered during the session. The scores are very accurate.
Those of us who think and breathe and talk about television music and film music never thought this day would come, that we would ever actually be able to hear the original music played live again in the exact same arrangement as the first composer wrote it.
If you're going to make mistakes, do it early. Dug out the scores and looked at them. They were very clean, very clear, very accurate to what we've always heard over the years. So we have the original notes, and we're going to reference the original recording. Now, that's not to say that I want you to imitate those performances, but respect to what is really a very well-played, very well-written theme. Our soprano is with us, and she's in a room right off to the side there in the studio. Good luck, everyone. Here it is. 2, 3.
All'inizio dell'episodio, al di là del